Welcome, Pewter Report readers, listeners, and viewers to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, Energized by Celsius. I am Jon Ledyard from pewterreport.com. Along with me today, JC Allen, to break down all things Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. What a force this guy has become in a very short amount of time for the Bucs. Can't wait until the regular season. We've got to talk about him. We've got lots of Bruce Arians comments to get to today. A potential COVID situation hanging over the Bucs organization. We'll see what happens. Nothing right now, but with the test for Mike Vrabel being positive, we'll talk a little bit about maybe what to expect there and how that stuff's going to get handled a little bit this season. Like I said, we've got a lot to talk about just with the Bucs players in terms of skill on the field today as well, JC. And so I'm excited, man. It's going to be a good little Monday night show. Nice to be on in the evening too.
Absolutely. Love these little Monday nighters. Everyone's, settled down, had some dinner, relaxing. Now they just flip open their pod and surprise, boom, Pewter Report's on. So
right.
The 4 o'clock is kind of hard for some people to get to. So, a nice nighttime. We should have a lot of activity. Looking forward to engaging with you guys on there and bring the comments, bring the questions. Let's go.
Absolutely. And reminder right off the top of the bat, if you're not subscribed to the Pewter Report podcast, get subscribed because we are dropping some news on today's show about content we will be doing this season on this channel. So if you're not subscribed, go to Pewter Report TV on YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and then tell somebody, hey, these guys are awesome. If you think we're awesome. If not, tell them the truth. But hopefully you think we're awesome by the end of the show at least. So we got to talk about our friends over at Celsius because they're the sponsors for today's show as they are for all of the Pewter Report podcasts. We are super thrilled and proud to always have Celsius as our title sponsor. If you haven't tried Celsius energy drinks, you are missing out, folks. The taste is unbelievable. It's healthy for you. There's no sugar. The energy that it gives you doesn't drop off like you get with other energy drinks. That's the amazing thing. And the amount of flavors that they can come up with without getting unhealthy and still taste great is pretty incredible. I'm drinking the blueberry pomegranate. What do you have there? Is that the orange?
Yeah, I got the, classic orange. You want some orange juice. You want some orange soda. Boom, Celsius instead, gives you a little bit of energy,
right.
get some stuff done when the kids go to bed, You
got to have it for the evening shows, right? It's a must. So make sure you go to Celsius.com and check out which Celsius, the store locator, use it to find out which Celsius you can get near you. But also you can go to Amazon too, and you can get your Celsius on there and you can get a variety pack. You can get all kinds of stuff. Do the subscribe and save a bunch of money, get them coming to your house regularly. It's the way to go. And you can also click on those banner ads over at pewterreport.com when you see Celsius pop up as well. Make sure that you get yourself some. All right. Speaking of getting yourself some, the Bucs might have got themselves a heck of a first-round pick. And before we get into Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, this is kind of a trend in Tampa Bay that is getting to be a little bit preposterous. You just don't see the type of draft success. And, of course, I don't want to count chickens before they hatch, obviously, but when you're around a guy and you watch him move and you study the position as long, I don't know, man. Like there isn't a person in that organization right now that doesn't think they just got a special player, number 32 overall. Not just good. I'm not talking about good. I'm talking about like TJ Watt was a steal to the Steelers at 28 or wherever they took him in the back end of the first round. That type of pass rush, like that type of an outcome. Like that's the player I believe that they think they got. And it's hard to argue with the results so far. Obviously, we're only talking about preseason, but I'm watching the way players move and the way from that perspective, there's just not a lot left to be desired for Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. But before we get into him super in depth, let's just talk about Light's draft history, JC. This is getting pretty insane how well he's drafted, isn't it?
Oh yeah. And it's like, especially the last 2 years, he's had prospects fall into his lap that I'm not saying, Tryon-Shoyinka is going to be an all-pro this year, Pro Bowler, heck, Tristan Wirfs wasn't. But, you look at all the prospects that at edge rusher that were drafted ahead of him, and, everyone had the Kwity Paye's and Jalen Phillips ahead of him. And, you had guys like Mekhi Becton and Andrew Thomas potentially. And he's getting the last guy, right? Tryon was like the one that the last pass rusher we thought that was really going to be able to make an impact early on, and they just fell in his lap, just like Tristan Wirfs fell in their lap. And you've got to be absolutely ecstatic with how the last two drafts have panned out. Mm-hmm. Robert Hainsey looks great when he's healthy so far. Picking up the center position gives you multiple. Kyle Trask is going to be a project. Darden. I mean, we've already talked about Darden up to our ears already, how he can't even run with the third and fourth and, barely runs with the second units.
Right.
Because he's blowing out the corners out of the water. So just his draft alone, but then you go back further drafts. I mean, starting with Mike Evans, he's had some hiccups since then, but I mean, Vita Vea, Devin White. I mean, the last 3 drafts have just been incredible for him.
I mean, really the last 4, honestly, going back to now, if we're counting this year's, you're right. We should pump the brakes and be patient for sure. But this actually, no, we're not going to do that. I mean, this isn't a show to pump the brakes, right? Like, this is a show to talk about how this guy looks ridiculous. And like, I don't like when people are always like, oh, let's wait for this, let's wait for that. Our job as analysts, right? Our job is to try and predict what's coming, right? What is in store for this team or for this player. So I don't think it's jumping the gun. And now if I said Joe Tryon's going to be a Hall of Famer, then that's a little bit ridiculous. Now we're too early for something like that. That requires a lot of different things, not just him being good. So there's a lot that goes into all those kinds of things. But just saying, I think this is going to be a hit as a pick, no, that's like our job. That's what we're supposed to do. I scout these guys for a reason. I don't scout it to stay on the fence. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka was not somebody I was nearly as high on as the Bucs were, or a lot of NFL teams, if you believe. Although he fell to 32, so a lot of teams probably did not have a first-round grade on him. And it's a little bit shocking. I was talking to Carmen Vitale today at practice, and I was like, how did this happen? Like, are the Bucs confused about how this happened? Like, and we hadn't seen him since 2019, and he looked like a different player on that tape. So that's the only explanation for how it happened. But even if you look at Jason Licht's recent draft history, just look at the first rounders, right? I mean, to hit on 4 first-round picks in a row is very difficult to do. So Vita Vea in 2018, that was a slow start, but it looks like a hit now. Devin White in 2019, I don't think he's a top 30 player in the NFL, like the NFL top 100 list just put him at, but Devin White is on his way to being one of the best linebackers in the league. Like that's the way it looked at the end of last season. Tristan Wirfs, I think he's already in the conversation for the best right tackle in the league. Now you've got a guy like Joe Tryon, who to me is more talented physically and athletically and is definitely made of the right stuff. No question about that from anybody in the organization or myself in the couple conversations we've been able to have with him. Just a highly impressive dude. Now you've got him. I think he's more talented than JPP, who was very talented coming out. More talented, certainly physically and athletically than Shaq Barrett. So, man, it just looks like not only did they get good players, but like you could make right now you'd probably make an argument that Wirfs, White, and Vea are all top 10 at their position. And I wouldn't argue with you at all about that.
No, I can't. Wirfs is definitely a top 10 right tackle. Vita Vea, I think this is his breakout year where he cements himself as, I've been calling him Aaron Donald Light, because he's got the same attributes and can do some of the same things. And he puts it all together in a fully healthy season. I think he's going to cement himself as a top 10 defensive tackle in the league if he's not already. And then Devin White is, he was ranked the 3rd best linebacker in the league by players last year, coming in at 28 behind Warner and Wagner.
And the first best by GMs and personnel people in ESPN's poll.
Yeah. So, these are people who, we study, we analyze, we do a lot of stuff with these players, but you're talking to players who play against them and guys who put far more, I wouldn't say far more, but, a good amount of tape and time invested into these players, and they've already got them. You can even go down the list. I think Antoine Winfield Jr., he's right on the cusp of being, if he puts another strong season together and, as he has said and as Bowles have said, plays a little bit more looser out there and get some more turnovers, I think he's right on the edge of a top 10. I think Carlton Davis is right on the edge of a top 10 player. So I think they're just really all the way around. The last couple of years of drafting have been really incredible by Jason Licht. And even going back to 2017, OJ Howard hasn't panned out the way you want it.
But Justin injuries have played a huge part in that too. So I'm glad you brought him up because, I tend to agree with you. I don't know that he would make the pick again, but I also think OJ Howard has had 2 seasons now where he looked like he was on his way and he was derailed by injury at a position that's very thin across the league. Would not have been a stretch of the imagination to say that OJ Howard had that type of potential to be a top 10 player at his position for sure. Now maybe we'll never know because of injuries. We'll see.
That draft class.
Yeah, but you're right. That draft class.
I mean, Justin Evans and Kendall Beckwith looked really good when they were healthy, and then unfortunate injuries derailed their career and forced them out of the league. I mean,
Chris still got Godwin out of a draft like that. One of the worst luck drafts so far, considering how much time O.J. Howard's missed, and 2 career-ending injuries for Justin Evans and Kendall Beckwith in just a couple years they'd played. Yeah. I mean, really, by their 3rd season, they were both just cooked. That just doesn't really happen because of injuries very often, especially 2 guys that early at picks. I mean, top 3 rounds. You're that promising. Yeah. So to be able to bounce back from that, when you take all the asterisks in that 2017 draft, 2016 was like rock bottom.
We don't talk about 2016.
Right? It was a horrible draft. No question. It was a horrible draft. But even if you look the year before, like Jameis Winston was the first overall pick, and obviously that didn't work out, but everybody in the league would have taken him or Mariota first, and neither of them have worked out. And that's just the way it goes. So I don't fault him one bit for that pick. He had the first pick. Then Donovan Smith, you not only draft him, you develop him. Everybody said that was a bad pick at the time. Now he's on his 3rd contract. Like Ali Marpet at 61.
Should have been in the top 100 list.
Yeah, small school. I mean, yeah, you're exactly right. And a small school guy, and you take him, you develop him. Quan Alexander played his best football in Tampa Bay. Now he can't, he's struggled since then, but he's played his best football of his career. Those were your first 4 picks in your 2nd draft. Then you talk about Mike Evans in the 1st draft. Obviously, he's only gotten better and learned, but I think we gave, the 2016 draft was bad and the Bucs were bad. So it made it seem like Jason Licht should be fired. And I think even at the time, myself and my youth and my foolishness probably was like, this is looking pretty rough for old buddy. But my gosh, like he has turned it around in an incredible way. You mentioned the 2017 draft, but even 2018, man, to be able to get Carlton Davis and Alex Kappa and Jordan Whitehead with your 4th, 5th, and 6th picks in that draft. Remember, they traded back to get Vita Vea. They added a 2nd rounder. I know MJ Stewart didn't work out. That was a bad pick, obviously. But you've gotten Vita Vea, Ronald Jones, Carlton Davis, Alex Kappa, Jordan Whitehead out of 1 draft. Justin Watson's been a special teamer in the 5th round. I mean, then you come back. Like you come back the next year, you get Devin White, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean, Mike Edwards, Anthony Nelson's honestly having a pretty good preseason. I watched the tapes. He doesn't get physically tossed by anybody. To get a capable backup in the 4th round at that position, he's never going to be a pass rusher. But the fact that he can come in and not get physically just do his job, right? Yeah. Like that in the 4th round, like that's the kind of player you want. Like
that's what you're getting there,
right? And I know Matt Gay didn't work out necessarily in Tampa Bay, but I don't think he was even horrible in Tampa Bay. I think Sokka was just better. And
he's killing it for the Rams. I know.
He's killing it for the Rams. Scotty Miller in the 6th round. Like we're talking about a ridiculous. If Tyler Johnson becomes what we think, but for this, like this is Wirfs, Winfield, Tyler Johnson in the same draft. I don't even care about the rest. Like,
don't count out Sneak too. I think Sneak's got a lot to prove and a lot to show.
I don't think anybody in the league can hold a candle to this, though, right, JC? Like no other GM.
No,
people are going to talk about Chris Ballard because he talks to the media and all this stuff, and I get it. And same thing with Brandon Beane. And he says all the inspiring things, and they're great GMs, no question. But look at their draft history and look at Jason Licht. Tell me there's a better drafting GM right now in the NFL than Jason Licht. Better talent evaluator than Jason Licht.
I don't see one. And I think not only that, I think he's making all the right moves in free agency too, especially now that he's got a competent coach and that, they know the direction where they want to go. And obviously Tom Brady was huge, but then bringing in the subsequent guys, people want to, a guy that we have been talking about nonstop was signed off the street, Ross Cockrell, and then re-signed for 2 years, getting him for 2 years at that contract. Great value. I've been high on him throughout this whole time, and him being able to play safety is just an added bonus. But not only that, I mean, some of these guys, like you said, talk to the media and this and that. And Jason Licht drinks beers on a boat. So, I mean, if you got a relatable guy, he's chicken wings, he's got a little bit of a beer gut, he's just having a great time out there. The personality that he's got when it shines through is great too. So, I mean, you got a personable GM who's killing it in the draft the last 4 or 5 years and who's killing it you got Tom Brady. I mean, come on. I mean, I know he didn't have to sell Tom so much on coming to Tampa, but I mean, the fact that he didn't win GM of the year last year was shockingly atrocious, not just because of the draft picks, but also bringing in Tom Brady and then Gronk and then Fournette and then
one of the best off seasons of all time for a GM. Like, giving the award to anybody else is so disrespectful and so ignorant. I can't even go. Like, an all-time offseason. Like, people like, oh, well, he got Brady. First of all, he got way more than that. But second of all, he got Brady. Like,
yes.
we were not talking about it like grade A, big market. This isn't the Dallas Cowboys. Like, he sold Brady on Tampa Bay. Like, come on. Like, drives me nuts, dude.
It's crazy. And you know what? I don't even think he gets recognition. Even if the Bucs don't make it to the Super Bowl this year from whatever injuries or just whatever play reason, anything can happen once you're in the playoffs. I still don't think he'll get it this year for bringing all 22, getting creative with the contract structure to bring everybody back. 25, really, you brought back Tryon and Suckup too. So you brought all your starters and your special teamers. But I still don't think he'll get the amount of credit that he deserves, especially going out there and drafting a guy like Joe Tryon and drafting, a guy like Jalen Darden, who I think will see the field in some packages as a wide receiver as well as a return man. It's crazy.
And this year's draft, I mean, the expectations are so low. They drafted the end of every single round. It wasn't a deep draft to begin with. There were all the challenges of the year and opt-outs and all of this stuff. The Bucs literally didn't even have room on their roster for certain position groups. So they had to take players like, I don't want to excuse the Kyle Trask pick if it doesn't work out. I won't. But they had to take players like that because they didn't have room at other spots on their roster. Like, there weren't spots for people to make it or play, in the near future. And so why not take a swing on a player like that? And I think, I've said my opinion on Trask. I think he's a career backup, but Hainsey has looked way more promising in the practices that we've seen him. And I'm excited. Bruce Arians said today he'll make his debut on Saturday. So a lot to look forward to there. And you mentioned Darden has looked good too in the fourth round. If you can get a third or fourth receiver out of him, a return guy out of him, that's a hit. That's what you're looking for and with that type of a pick. So good points there. I don't want to spend too much
special teams led the way afterwards. What else can we address it? Special teams. Grab a couple linebackers and a cornerback. Always invest quarterback and cornerback. Always invest in your secondary and your signal column.
Yep, for sure. No question. Moves. Completely agree with it. He's flooded both positions. He's done what he's had to do at both positions to make the team very, very competitive, obviously. So a couple questions before we get to Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, just because I don't want to miss these. With Mike Vrabel testing positive for COVID, are there concerns regarding close contact with players like Brady? Not sure, Harvinder. It's a good question. We aren't exactly sure who would have had close contact with Vrabel in the window where they believe he could have had COVID. So that probably matters too. We certainly saw Brady and his son Jack talking in close proximity to Vrabel. And then before the game, I believe there was a shot of our Cliff Welch, our photographer, had a shot of Vrabel and Arians and Brady talking. I don't know the exact distance. It looks like they're close to 6 feet, at least to Arians. We'll see. I really don't know what that's I don't know what's going to come of all that. All we know is that here we are a couple days later since the Bucs last saw Vrabel, and they do not have any positive COVID results according to Bruce Arians today. So that's all we can go off of right now. Certainly it's something that bears monitoring. They'll continue to get everybody tested, obviously. And but the other thing is, I believe with vaccinated players, which Brady is, in which Bruce Arians is obviously vaccinated players and coaches, I believe the protocols are different if you are in close contact. Tom Pelissero talked about that a little bit today on Pat McAfee's show. I believe you are not a high danger close contact or something like that if you're vaccinated, unless you test positive, something along those lines. So we'll see how that, obviously these policies are always changing right now, and they should be. I mean, that's the reality of the climate that we're living in, but that is the advantage maybe for vaccinated personnel in that point. And the Bucs are near 100% vaccination. So the concern probably is limited to a few players who may or may not have been close contacts with Vrabel at all at this point. So hopefully that answers your question as well as I'm capable of answering it. Richard wants to know, how does the media know which players and coaches are going to hold a press conference? This is actually a great question. We don't.
Surprise.
Well, you go ahead. You answer this one, JC, because you kind of know how it works.
Yeah. Last year it was a lot different because everything was over Zoom. So you would get, a release the day before. And it was great because you could prep questions and stuff like that. And John will tell you sometimes now, because they're, COVID's kind of taken away from the Zoom and they're doing in-person interviews at practice, you kind of never know who you're going to get. And it kind of just pops up. And sometimes you're expecting one person, but then the other person, he's got something going on, so he cancels. So it's kind of a surprise. You're either going to get Bruce Arians every day, or either Byron Leftwich or Todd Bowles, one of those. They like to give him a day off every now and then. But as for players, it's just Who knows? I mean, it's just the luck of the draw. Last year, I thought it was a little easier with Zoom because I could, prepare questions and have time to think other than just be like, all right, so-and-so's coming up. And you're like, okay, what can I think about? Let me make sure this is a question someone before me is going to ask, because, Rick Stroud and Greg Allman are always the first to ask a question, and they ask great questions. So, I'm like, let me make sure that it's not a question that's going to be too easy that they're going to ask. But it's a crapshoot. I don't know if you want to expand on that at all.
No, it's a good question though, Richard. I think I like when people ask these behind the scenes questions. You wonder how it works and everything, and that makes sense. And most of the time, we don't know. After a game, it's pretty guaranteed we'll get the head coach and the quarterback for sure. And then after that, it's kind of who played well, who stood out during the game, who were kind of the leaders for the team. Some teams will. I mean, if a guy struggled in a game and he's one of the better players on the team, sometimes they'll put him up there and have them answer questions, and that's always helpful for us. And sometimes the player gets it and they want to be, but the best, I mean, nothing will replace like open locker room. That was where we could kind of go in and be able to ask players whatever, and just kind of be able to have one-on-ones with players and gain their confidence and relate to them. And so not having that because of COVID has really hurt sports journalism, I think, especially a lot of the beat writers, people who rely on the news and breaking things and getting inside perspective from players to be able to produce content. That's not been the same. So the presses are good. The Zooms are good. It's fine, but it's not how it used to be for us in terms of that kind of access. So that is one part of COVID that's really impacted us a lot for sure. But a good question, Richard. We'll try and shed whatever insight on that we can as we go. But like today after practice, I found out right before the end of practice, we were getting Tanner Hudson, Mike Edwards, and Antonio Hamilton. And it was just like, all right, let's roll, so.
Let's think of some questions real quick.
That's right. Yeah. Mike wants to know how many receivers are kept. Who is the odd man out? Will we lose a good prospect? Gonna guess that 6 receivers at least are kept for sure, Mike, maybe 7. And that's probably the conversation happening right now. If it's 7, does Travis Johnson make this final roster? Does Jaden Mickens make this final roster with Justin Watson hurt? Bruce Arians and Jason Licht definitely want to keep Travis Johnson. Will it be on the active roster, or will they try and get him on the practice squad? We'll see. But he is a player. He is kind of like their plan C. Tyler Johnson is plan B, and Travis Johnson is probably plan C for the Godwin potential exit if that happens in the future. They want to be prepped for that. And so he talked a little bit today about Travis Johnson potentially being a guy that could do some of those things down the road. So we'll see. But that is my thought, Mike, is that they're going to want to keep at least 7, I think.
Yeah, I think they're kind of going back, and we mentioned this in the group chat today. I think you mentioned, actually. Do they keep 7 wide receivers, or do they keep, that 4th tight end? And that's, I think, that a conversation they're having with Tanner Hudson and Travis Johnson and Jaden Mickens. I feel like Jaden Mickens, who had a strong camp, is kind of he's kind of out of the picture a little bit here. I think it's more Travis Johnson. And as you mentioned, Bruce brought him up today when talking about, the blocking in the run game. His exact quote is, I think Travis Johnson is a guy in the future that can be that might be another guy that's got size and physicality to go out there and do that as a wideout. So he's definitely, as you said, in their future plans. Whether they can sneak him on the practice squad is a big question, because obviously, everyone wants to go out there and play and have a chance to get game time on Sundays. So it's going to be really interesting to watch who gets snapped up off waivers. Everyone wants to scoop up the Super Bowl champions guys and see if they can, at least, if anything, bring that impact to their locker room. Super Bowl champion, what was it like? Whatever. And there's a lot of guys, especially in that wide receiver room, I think could help a lot of other teams. So.
For sure. It's going to be a team that people watch on cutdown day because it is such a deep roster, especially at certain positions. Chris wants to know what's our take on Jamar Chase? And this is a non-Bucs question. We don't get many of these, but I don't know what he means by picking up where he left off at LSU with all the drops. Jamar Chase had the best college football season of all time for a wide receiver, unless you want to count Devontae Smith's season last year, which was, if you look at degree of difficulty, not as difficult as what Chase had to go through in the SEC against literally like 7 number 1 corners who were all starting in the NFL today in an offense that was incredibly vertical. I just am not sorry. It's going to take a lot for me to be worried about Jamar Chase. You do already have 2 things: the drops in the preseason and the fact that he plays for the freaking Bengals. Like that's a big worry right there. I mean, but if the Bengals waste and ruin Chase and Burrow, I think you got to go with 31 teams. Just cut them straight out, because you can't give him prospects like that and just whatever.
Just not sold on the whole Burrow thing yet. I need to see it again. One of your wonders always at quarterback. Always, I know you're reuniting him with his wide receiver, and let's see what happens. But hey, we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk about Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. But before we do, let's talk about our friends over at livinggolflife.com. Got to tell the people, you can see, there it is, the mug, the Living Golf Life mug, and the Living Golf Life koozie we got going on up here on the shelf behind me. But livinggolflife.com, these guys are doing some awesome stuff. If you visit their website, they've got all kinds of accessories, clothing, apparel, all kinds of stuff, koozies, glasses. You could check out their polos, are very nice. You see me rock the hat before, the Living Golf Life hat on this show. So they've got some great stuff going on at livinggolflife.com. No question about it. Check it out if you're a golfer. Make sure that you pick up kind of what these guys are doing, because guys with military background, it's great to support them. And this is kind of their dream, this site, and golf in general. They're not great at it. They're open about that, Mike and Jim, but they love getting out on the golf course, throwing a few back, having a good time with the fellas. So they decided to pour that into a business, and they are kind of creating this livinggolflife.com that is just has some awesome designs, some awesome looking stuff, honestly, from the hats and the accessories to the polos as well. So if you're a golfer, and I know a lot of you are, check out livinggolflife.com, get yourself a polo, get yourself a hat, get yourself some accessories, or get them as a gift for other people as well. So livinggolflife.com, make sure you check them out. All
Absolutely.
right, JC.
Especially in COVID time, we're still not out of COVID. Small businesses are struggling. They're, local business. Check them out. Give them a shout.
Yeah, they're great stuff. Great people too. All right, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. I got a few clips. I had to. I said, listen, if I got to express it, you know what I mean? I got to let people know what I'm seeing here. That gets me so excited about this player. A lot of people saw week one, and I think they even saw my article that I wrote and was like, wow, he was really impressive in week one. And he was it was a really impressive showing for him. I think that it was just the beginning in some ways. We saw he moved. Check out this cross chop move here and just how he feels this out. You can see him kind of at the top of the screen, at the bottom of the screen there off the edge. He's just feeling this whole thing out, right? The guy's arms are just sitting there. He's not punching. Okay, cross chop. And then you can see the lean as he works to the quarterback. It's just some impressive stuff. And then I was like, the one concern I had after preseason week one, I said, okay, he's got it as a pass rusher, but I mean, his run defense is going to take time. He kind of got tied up with blockers and didn't find the ball that well in the run game. It wasn't like he allowed anything huge, but he's so explosive and so strong that he's going to be disruptive at the very least. I thought, well, in 1 week, he looked like a different player against the run. I'm not saying long-term what he's going to be against the run, because that's way more technical and harder to scout. You have to have a larger sample size to scout that than pass rush, really. But just look at this play. Here he is against a tight end. Do not disrespect him. Are you kidding? Do not disrespect this man. Are you serious right now? Look at this. Bench press, find the ball, get off the block, make the tackle. I mean, just outstanding stuff. That's physically manhandling a dude. That's the second play of the game. Just no contest type of stuff for a rookie. That's not, who hasn't played football in forever, 2 years. That's just stuff that it freaks you out, JC, when you see that kind of explosiveness and that kind of power.
Oh yeah. I mean, we talked about it too. That first clip, you watch his footwork too, and the way he gets off the ball. I mean, he's not one of the biggest things, John, we talked about all the way up leading to the draft, and when we brought up Tryon, was can he fix his footwork? That's one of the biggest knocks on him that we've seen was his footwork. I haven't seen any issues with it. I mean, maybe once or twice, but really, I mean, he's not. His movements are sure, and he knows what he's doing. The way he fires off the ball is just, and his array of pass rush moves already for a rookie. The ways he can beat you. I mean, the bull rush. He's got the chop. He's got different things that he can use to get after the quarterback and just to throw a tackle off balance. And I mean, you just saw that pure power on the tight end. And
right,
I think we're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I'm glad you brought up the array of pass rush moves. That's a huge thing for him. Not only does he have this array of moves, he already kind of knows how to set them up, which there's some things two things to me about his game are just so strange for a player that this age, especially who's coming off a year off of football. Physically, his ability to manhandle people is crazy to me. It's not just about being big and strong. It's not about those kinds of things. You also have to have some instinctive measure for football, where to place your hands, how to place your hands to discard someone. it's not just about being strong. There's way more to it than that. And so the fact that he can do all that already, again, it's kind of crazy. Here's an example of kind of what I mean by the pass rush move. So you've got him here again, and all these reps, he's the left outside linebacker. You've got him here, and he is going to do a 2-hand stab. I paused it there so you can see, and then the bull, right? Okay, so 2-hand stab. He's literally just knocking that guy backwards. That's just a speed to power rush. He probably didn't even expect it to go down like that. I don't think he expected to get this kind of impact when he did it. I think he was going to transition to another move, and he's learning his power, and I'll show you what I mean by that later. Like, he's learning how much he's jarring guys, because not just that he's strong, but the explosiveness of the first step. Think about it just scientifically, like the momentum that he creates moving forward because of how explosive he is creating a lot of this for him. Then on the sack, so he did this a couple times. He did this speed to power, I'm going to long arm you, I'm going to stab you, I'm going to bull rush you type of move. So Radunz, the tackle here, is a rookie as well, is taking a few spots after Tryon, is leaning now. He's starting to try and get into Tryon before Tryon can get into his frame. And then you can see the deception. That punch before Tryon can. And then you can see Tryon just kind of wrap him up.
You're muted.
Yeah.
You're muted during the clip.
Yeah, you could see Tryon kind of wrap him up and then hold him, as he gets through there. But his ability to kind of long arm stab and then and outreach people, or bull and outreach people, I think it's one of those things that's going to help his game so much, because as he can work those speed to power, he gets guys leaning, he gets guys trying to grab him, he gets guys trying to beat him to the punch. Then you're going to slip and use that bend to go around guys. But I mean, just to move like he does, not only to explode, but to bend like he does while maintaining speed to turn those corners, that's just freaky, rare stuff. Like, that's not stuff that I don't have a lot of analysis for. It's just like, you're just a freak. You know what I mean? So he's combining knowing how to pass rush with being a freak, and he didn't play football last year. Like, that is just so crazy. Like, you just don't see rookies do this stuff. I watch them every year, and you can see this play too. Just speed to power. Like, and he's not even expecting this, JC. Like, this is a surprise to him. He's trying to go speed to power and then work off of it. He can't believe the guy fell. I mean, loses contain. So, I mean, they probably knocked him in the film room for this, because he loses contain here. But I mean, come on, like, this is absurd. Like, this is the NFL, and you're just pulverizing people.
Yeah,
put that with the tight end clip I showed earlier.
Dillon Radunz was, he was a highly thought of prospect at one point, considered a potential late first round pick by some pundits. So, I mean, you look at the guy, and one thing also we said too is he's a little raw. He's got all the physical attributes. The guy looks like an action figure, cooked up in a lab, and he's got all the.
Was it not? Who was it that yesterday? It was like, do you see as a 12 pack?
Yes.
Who was that? Grant Stewart or somebody? I forget. They were like, why do you say he's a monster? And they were like, have you seen him? Like, he has a 12 pack.
He's got a 12 pack. But I mean, we talked about, how, it could take a little while, he's raw, whatever. But obviously he did a lot of work last year when he opted out, which was, very encouraging and very, obviously great for his development. But just like we talked about Tristan Wirfs, the first round pick from last year, his ability to go up against guys like Shaq Barrett and JPP helped him tremendously to be the guy that he was going into the season. Well, now he's going up against a guy like Tristan Wirfs and Donovan Smith on every play, which is helping his progression. Plus, he's got two fantastic teachers. And, if you look in the field, JPP had some veteran days off. He was still out there. He was coaching the guys. So, he's given him all the tips and advice that he needs. And same thing with Shaq Barrett. And they're just really pouring into them their knowledge. And plus, I don't know if you guys know, Larry Foote wasn't that bad of an outside linebacker himself. So he's getting knowledge from everywhere, from the coaching staff, from the players, and he's getting experience of going against, in my mind, an all-pro right tackle. Mm-hmm. And if he plays the way he did the last 8 games, a Pro Bowl left tackle. So it's just great for his development as well, and be able to use those and really discover. And plus, these players are helping each other grow too. So Tristan, hey, instead of using this move, use this move, or same thing with Shaq and JPP. Instead of when you see him doing this, dude, it's just. The guy's going to be a freak. If it's not this year, his breakout season is going to be next year on JPP. But I could still see him getting 7 to 9 sacks this season as a designated pass rusher. I think he's picking it up too quick, and he's not going against guys like this in the regular season.
I agree with you. Someone asked. I'm sorry, I scrolled past the comment here, but someone asked. What does Todd Bowles do here? Here we go. Long Lost Glazer asked, is Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, JTS for short? Yes, we'll start calling him JTS eventually here, especially on Twitter. Ability to get 7 yards deep so quick, allow Bowles to dial up more stunts and games with the other outside linebacker interior D-line to create chaos up close, and the quarterback can't step up into the pocket. Obviously, yes. No question that guys with movement skills and speed to power definitely help with those things. But I also think Joe Tryon is going to change the way that Todd Bowles does some stuff. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is just more physically and athletically talented than Shaq Barrett or Jason Pierre-Paul. Like I know that some people can say that's a hot take if they want. That's just reality. Like he can do stuff one-on-one when he's as capable as when he gets as technically refined and as well-rounded as those guys. He can do stuff and move in ways that those guys aren't going to be able to. You can wait to see him against better players if you want. I understand that. You can be more skeptical than I am. That's totally fine. The Bucs are already thinking what I'm thinking. Like, this guy can do stuff that we don't have people in our building that can do this kind of stuff physically and athletically. So that is going to make things interesting for Todd Bowles. Shaq Barrett, 19.5 sack season or whatever it was. Like, obviously an awesome season, no question about it. Like, no doubt about it. I've been a Shaq Barrett fan. He's a good player for sure. He's a guy that, to me, if he starts every year of his career, he averages 8 to 10 sacks a season. He might have one season blow up like that 19.5, or might get another 12 sack season in there. Most years he's an 8 to 10 guy, and that's a good play. In today's NFL, you kidding me? That's a good player. You can count on that. Mm-hmm. But Shaq Barrett, it needed, if you watch his 19.5 sacks, a good number of those, quite a few of those came off of games and stunts. They got him great looks. They got him great matchups. They got him clean looks. They got him unblocked looks. He finished. He made plays on the ball. He got the ball out. No question. He deserves credit for all those things. But there's always been a schematic element to these things. And there's been like some assisted sacks from Vea. That's not a knock. That's reality for both he and Jason Pierre-Paul. I wouldn't put Jason Pierre-Paul or Shaq Barrett in the top tier of edge rushers in the NFL. Guys with physical ability like Tryon-Shoyinka, that's usually where they end up. So we'll see again, TJ Watt, you're talking about guys, Myles Garrett, that have freakish ability like that to burst. Remember, I talk about the 4 pillars of athleticism, right? The burst, short air explosiveness, speed, ability to maintain that explosiveness over short distances, 7 to 10 yards usually. And then the ability to turn the corner without losing speed. Those things are already kind of on display for him. The one we still have to see with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is the ability to change directions. That's the 4th pillar of pass rush athleticism to me. So if he can change directions and we start to see inside counter moves, I don't know, man. I think we're talking about a player who can do a lot of things one-on-one that JPP and Shaq aren't going to have in their repertoire. I'm not saying that happens week 1, but eventually that's going to happen, in my opinion, with him. And when that happens, when he's able to square up guys like Tristan Wirfs did with Cam Jordan week 1, when that's able to happen for Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Todd Bowles is going to have to say, I don't need to run as many games. I don't need to do all these kinds of things to get other guys free, to create havoc. I have a pass rusher who changes the game 1v1 by himself.
Game plan.
Right. And in every matchup, I don't think that Shaq Barrett and JPP do that. Some matchups they do. I think there's another level for Tryon-Shoyinka that's beyond those guys. When he gets there, we'll see. Preseason says it's going to be early. We'll see. Obviously, he's better competition to go up against, so we've got some things to learn still, unlike with Wirfs, where he came out week 1 and he was putting the clamps on Cam Jordan. I texted Scott Reynolds. I think this guy could be like the best tackle in the league. Like, I know that's week 1. I didn't put that in the story, but you can ask Scott. I told him like right away. I just said, like, you just see guys move and you see the way they play and you're just like, yeah, I mean, it's special. So that's going to be something. It's a good question by Long Lost Glazer, because I think we'll get to the point where that's a conversation we've got to talk about for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you listen to the top 100 player list, one of the things they say about Shaq is you look at his body, you look at his frame, you look at 6'2". I mean, he doesn't have the prototypical anything. He just gets it done with hard work and hustle. And
I mean, JPP doesn't lift weights. Like,
yeah,
Shaq Barrett, I don't know if he lifts weights. I mean, whatever they do works for him, no question. But yeah.
But I agree. JTS, I think he's going to be one of those game guys. If he continues this development and we get to see it against top competition, it's going to be a game planner. The offensive coordinator is going to have to game plan around where's this guy going to be, and give tackles extra help. And I agree with you. I don't think that's necessarily what offensive coordinators are going to say. Okay, we got to figure out where Shaq and JPP are on every play. JTS, I think, is a guy that could potentially be that. Where is this guy going to be on every play? And you got to know.
And I'm not trying to, people are saying some comps for him. If I get into comps at all, people are going to lose their minds if I say comps, because people don't understand. I don't do one-to-one comparisons really. Like I just do, this player reminds me of the way he moves, the way he uses his hands, things like that. Some people say he reminds them of Bosa. To me, the difference is Bosa, he knew right away how to work inside counter moves. Like he knew right away when it was time to get inside of a tackle. And that's something Tryon will still have to learn. Tryon-Shoyinka isn't quite there yet in terms of getting to that apex and then recognizing I'm coming back inside of you. Or maybe he knows it and he just hasn't pulled it out of the bag yet. I mean, it's certainly possible. With his explosiveness, that's not going to take him very long to add to his arsenal. But Bosa was like so sophisticated right away that I would say that was the big difference. He could bowl and get inside of tackles. He could spin and get inside of tackles. He knew how to set up inside rushes too, which inside rushes are the fastest path to the quarterback, right? Closest difference distance between 2 points is a straight line. That's like the same principle. You don't have to go around anybody to get him. So the fact that Bosa could do that right away was what made him pretty special, in my opinion. Some good questions though about who I would comp him to. I don't know. Do you have a take on this, JC? I mean, you watch some players around the league too, but I don't want to get crazy with people, but like,
no, yeah, I mean, I don't want to set expectations.
No what you say.
Yeah, I don't want to set expectations too high or too low. I just think his versatility too is what he can do. I mean, we've seen him stun as an inside linebacker already. We've seen him down, with his hand in the dirt. We've seen him line up as an interior defensive lineman in practice. So we've seen the guy do a bunch of different things. Do I think that I need to see more against better competition before I say, oh, yeah, this guy's going to be like Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa or one of the top pass rushers in the league? Do I think he's got that ability based off what I've seen so far? If he can refine some things and continue to work on his technique and get his array of pass rush moves and continue, as John has said, not just build his array, but also learn how to set guys up and when to use them. I think he could be a top 10 edge rusher in the league, just based off what we've seen, but I'm not going to get crazy in the comps.
I figured out how I want to say it. I figured out how I want to say it. It's not a one-on-one comparison.
They're going to hold you to it.
If you look at the top pass rushers in the NFL right now, and you look at the top tier, and you say, which guy could Joe Tryon-Shoyinka stylistically, if he reaches that level of success, which of these guys will he look the most like if he does that? The answer in my mind is not TJ Watt, although there's something there, but not TJ Watt, even though I've compared their college tenures and falls in their draft positions. It's not the Bosa brothers because he's more explosive than those guys, but they're just so sophisticated in terms of their technique. Nick might be as explosive. I mean, Nick's explosive. Joey's just such a technician. It's not Khalil Mack. It's not Khalil Mack in my opinion. Different body types, different rush plans. Mack again, speed to power, edge rip, those kind of things. Tryon, there might be more in the bag there eventually, but Max.
I love the build up
as well. I mean, the guy that physically, if he reaches that top tier of edge rusher, the guy that he's going to look the most stylistically like is Myles Garrett, because they're both huge, they're both freaks, they're both long, they're both absolutely ripped up and shredded. So physically, you already have those comparisons. Garrett is bigger for sure, but the ability to be that big and long and bend without losing speed the way those guys do, you don't have guys like that really. Like they can do that. Like the Bosas are great, but they can't bend like those guys can and finish. So they have other things, so they're better in other ways. And again, there's the whole like playing 3 downs type of thing. But yeah, if he reaches that top tier echelon of edge rusher, it'll be because he developed similarly to Garrett because they're freakish. And Kane is exactly right here. JTS's opt-out helped the Bucs tremendously. The Bucs might never have had a shot at him at 32 had he played. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what he did in the year off. I can't wait to get him again to start asking him these questions when we get him for the media, because it was whatever he did was crazy. But I want to find out kind of what happened. And I said this, we're way too early with this. I think I mentioned on the post-game podcast, but I wonder if he has success if guys in the Pac-12 at least, where you rush 3 all the time and you look at Vea. Look at Vea coming out. He didn't have any clue what he was doing as a pass rusher. He's still learning year 4 because his college situation didn't set him up for any type of, he was triple teamed all the time because the way that they rush in the Pac-12. You got 5-6 man protections against 3 rushers almost every snap. I mean, talk about Tryon-Shoyinka. He was difficult to evaluate in college because of that. So yeah, it's a good comparison there. Someone said Simeon Rice, and I thought of this the other day too. Don't you think there's some of that, like in terms of the way they move?
Yeah, and it's funny because Simeon Rice was over there talking to Joe Tryon earlier in camp. Oh, Tryon-Shoyinka, sorry, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, if you ever need anything, give me a call. And diagnosing, hey, you kind of do this, and so it's funny that he's getting advice from a player that he kind of does move a little bit. Like, it's funny too because I just looked up Joe Tryon's name on Twitter and it's already trending. Ledyard thinks Tryon is the next Myles Garrett. So
get out of here.
It's already trending. So I didn't do it.
Listen, I will say that I think that's the best way to look at some of these comps, right? You're saying, like, what can a player be at his best? Who will he look like stylistically? Like, you could do that with a lot of guys in this draft. You know what I mean? Who are they going to look like if they reach their peak? You could do that with a guy like Peyton Turner. Could he be? Some people have said Calais Campbell. I don't know if I see that, but you could do that with Jason Away, like Danielle Hunter, who's gotten a lot of comparisons, not only because of the college production, but they move kind of similarly and look pretty similarly and tested pretty, so there's a lot of that going on. Like, if they reach their peak, nobody, but that's their kind of high end comparison. And so, I mean, Myles Garrett could be the best defensive player in the league, other than Aaron Donald. So, I mean, I don't know if he'll get to that point or not. It's way too early to say that, but I'm just saying stylistically, like, that's the guy, if he reaches that level of play, that, like, because of the way that, again, not many guys can burst, bend, and power the way those 3 can at that kind of size, and Garrett, I believe, is bigger than Tryon. Even Tryon's lost weight from college. I don't think he could carry Garrett's weight and move like Garrett does. So if you want to give Garrett that more of a freak label, absolutely. I mean, Garrett's the biggest freak in the league, but the results end up kind of bearing itself out in terms of the way they move and finish. So it'll be fun. We get to watch Joe Tryon-Shoyinka against obviously better competition. I believe he'll get in there early in the game. Arians has gotten to the point where he's not even fielding questions about him after the game. He's like, yeah, the standard is the standard for Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. That's basically what he said. I'm like, it's his second preseason game, and we're already at the point where he's just like, I'm not going to blow this kid up anymore. I mean, like, come on.
I love how you said better Is it better competition? Is it?
Well, Laramie Tunsil might get out there, right?
Okay.
I don't even know who. Is he opting out of the year just because he looked at his roster? I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't blame him. I mean,
we will talk more about that though. Wednesday's show I'll have some thoughts on that because they need to come out swinging against the Texans, this Bucs team. We'll get to that in a second. Let's talk about today's practice a little bit because we have I know I've gushed about Joe Tryon. I love edge rushers. So I did want to be gushing a little bit on this show, JC. So I apologize. Hopefully I kept it together in an adequate sense.
Yeah, besides, comparing Joe Tryon-Shoyinka to Myles Garrett.
Do not put that clip out there. That's not what happened.
You heard it first.
You're going to edit this clip down and just take out all my, asterisk words and just throw it out there. Let's talk about Spotify Green Room. What's happening in the world of Spotify Green Room these days, JC? We haven't talked much about them, but with the season coming up again, it's time to start plugging Spotify Green Room again.
Absolutely. We're going to start doing weekly shows there, whether I'm hosting them, whether John's hosting them, whether hosting them together, whether Matt's in on them too. We're going to start getting out there, taking all your questions. It'll kind of be like an in-person mailbag, right? So, but more than that, you guys can come up on stage and talk to us. It's a great app, social audio app that's changing the way people can converse all over the world. Don't want to talk about, movies, sports, music, anything, current events. It's a great place to get on there and connect with people. Not just that, but also promote your own work or anything that's going on that you're doing, and also just network as well. So definitely check that out. Go in there, join the conversation, tap into Spotify Green Room, and really look out for our Pewter Report shows go type us in the search bar, follow us, add myself, and whenever we go live, you'll get a notification, and we can hop on in there, and we can talk Bucs, talk whatever, talk NFL. We did a lot of that stuff prior to the draft and stuff like that. So whatever you guys want to talk about, any questions you have, dial in when you see us in, and we'll get after it.
Absolutely, no question about it. It's the way to go for sure, is to check out Spotify Green Room. There's a lot of great conversations happening there. All right, so Bucs practice today. I'll pull up my notepad. Oh wait, I know what I want to lead with. OJ Howard dropped 2 passes.
Oh no, he didn't.
Yeah, man. I never want to kick a dude when he's down. Like it's kind of stuff starts to go without saying, but he's just not there right now. So hopefully he gets it back. Good thing for him is that anything the Bucs get from OJ Howard this season is totally ancillary. They've already got one of the best number 2 tight ends in the league in Cam Brate, and one of the best starters with OJ Howard this season is icing on the cake for the Bucs. But for OJ Howard, who I really like, and I think everybody in the Bucs media room really likes, and he has been gracious with his time. He knows what is said about him. He stands up there. He looks us in the eye. He gives good answers. He's not backed down from anything that's come his way. He's not made excuses. Just would be nice to see him catch a break for once, come back from this injury and get sharp again.
The difficult thing too is it's not the way he's moving, because I think he's moving all right. It's the hands. And what makes it even more frustrating is, when we are at practice together, whether I'm with John or whether I'm with Matt, one of you guys go off and you do the interviews. Well, I hang that back after practice a little bit before walking off, because I want to see who's doing what after practice, who's taking the extra time. And every single practice, OJ Howard is out there on the jugs machine catching 50 to 100 balls. And the fact that he's dropping these catches, and we heard Bruce say the other day, it's just, what can you do about the drops? Just the jugs machine. Well, he's doing the jugs machine, and he's still dropping the ball. So I don't know if it's lack of concentration, if he's thinking too much about his Achilles while he's moving and running, and that's or the injury, or what he's thinking about. I don't know. He's got a snow roll ice cream named after himself. Maybe he's thinking about getting one of those after practice because it's been so hot out. But whatever it is, it's still dropping the ball. So I don't know. The
frustrating thing with OJ is I don't think it's a lack of work ethic or anything, or I think it's just things that are affecting him right now with the injury. He doesn't feel maybe like I don't know. I'm not sure, but it just clearly he's not all there. And so 2 drops today for him. And I know that's obviously been a struggle for him, is catching the football, and they're trying to stick by him and support him and have his back, I think, right now. And maybe that does it. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. We'll see. Fournette got the first snap at running back today. Yikes.
Havinder had a good comment down there. He said, especially being in New England, I know this for a fact. I mean, if you're out there on the field, you need to make the most out of every snap. And Brady has said this. If he's actually quoted on air with the clip. If you're going to put someone out there and he's not going to do his job, I'm not going to throw the ball to him. So if it becomes an issue when the regular season comes around and he's dropping passes, Brady's going to ignore him. He's not going to look his way, and it's just going to happen. And he'll see less and less playing time, especially with a guy like Cam Brate who can go out there and get the job done. So I mean,
he might see less playing time. I actually totally disagree with the idea that Brady won't throw. I mean, look at last year. Like, how many times he threw Rojo and Leonard the ball and they put it on the ground? I mean,
but it's a running back. I mean,
I think Brady's gonna. If you're if you are open by the structure of the play, Brady's gonna throw to you. I don't care if your name's Gunnar Olszewski or whatever that guy's name was for the.
You put some respect Patriots. On his
name. Gunnar, whatever Gunner's last name was, and I don't care if Chris Hogan, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. Randy Moss. Like, if you're open in the play, I think he's gonna throw the ball to you. Like, he does not care what your name is. And I think he trusts whoever the coach has put on the field. He plays by the system. Other quarterbacks maybe it would matter with. Now, Brady is probably accurate when he tells you that, like, he wants, like, if you're not doing your job, he's not going to throw you the ball, because if you're not doing your job, you're probably not open. And so there's probably some of that to it, but I think Brady just plays within whatever he's supposed to do on a given play, given what the defense is showing him. So I think he will get opportunities from Brady if he plays. I just don't know what to expect right now. It's every ball is an adventure ball to OJ Howard right now.
Could he be a surprise trade candidate at cut down time?
No. Nope. I don't think so. No. Because
I don't think so either. Just posing the question.
Yeah. No, it's not a bad question.
$6 million due. I mean, contract year.
What are you trading him for right now?
You got a 4th round pick for him next year. Would you turn that down?
You're not going to get a fourth, though. I mean, off an Achilles with nothing like to show for it since then, no real tangible. Now, before the trade deadline, if something happens, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. It's too early to say that. We have to see if he comes back. But you don't want to trade him when his stock's down, especially when you feel like depth is really valuable to you right now with everything going on. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's dumb for you to pose it at all. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna happen before the season starts. Like, would shock me.
Conversation.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, his whole career arc has been. I mean, I swear, if you watch when he was healthy, like year 2, like it looked like he was about to take over. Like he's about to be the next guy, like the next Waller type of player. Some other interesting things from today's practice. Guess who was Ndamukong Suh and Steve McClendon were excused from practice and today. And so Vita Vea was a starting nose tackle. Will Golston was in there on the starting defensive line. Guess who was your other star?
Was it POC?
Pat O'Connor, baby.
Whoa!
Over Nacho at the 3 technique spot is pretty interesting to me. Yeah.
Well, he had a game, man. He had a game the other night.
I think they're ready for Pat O'Connor time, baby. I think they're ready. They want to see. I mean, I rewatched the tape. His first step. Oh my goodness, Josh, it was crazy. Like he was explosive.
Didn't you compare him to Myles Garrett too?
No, I didn't. I did text you guys. I said, didn't expect to see Pat O'Connor looking like Grady Jarrett out here.
Oh, Grady Jarrett. That's what it is. Myles Garrett, Grady Jarrett.
He had some steps where he was beating all the offensive linemen off the ball, like early in the game. Like it was crazy.
Do you think he was anticipating snap count? Or, I mean, because we haven't seen that.
That's why I said early in the game, because usually later that can be, but it was like the first drive and he was jumping guys off the ball. Like
They did practice together all week, though. I mean.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe that helped. I don't know. Yeah, I have no clue.
But regardless, he looked great. I mean, he had 2 tackles for a loss, a big sack.
Could have had 2 more tackles. Was in the backfield like 2 or 3 other times. Was kind of getting blocked trying to make a tackle. Same as last week. I mean, his tackle grade for PFF is terrible, but everything else is like elite right now. Because he's missed like 4 tackles for a loss in the backfield.
At what point do we stop putting stock? I mean, on some of PFF's preseason stuff. I mean, come on. I mean,
there's aspects that are good. You have to look at sample size too. They would tell you that too. They're like, oh, well, this guy's like Devin White. Grade was whatever the other day, but it was 6 snaps. It's like, oh, well, they'd say that doesn't mean anything. Sample size is everything to them. So, yeah, I mean, I'll be honest when I disagree with them too. Like, but. O'Connor, I get. I mean, they've graded him really, really high because he's played unbelievable. So, yeah, he was out there with that group. And then you had your second team O-line. You had Hainsey out there at center today. And you had Stinney and Wells, the law firm, on the right side. You had Wells playing right tackle today. And Leverett and Seaton playing on the left side today.
Leverett back at guard?
Back at guard. So, finally – at a home. And he wasn't bad at center. His snaps were bad, but the rest of it wasn't that bad at center. So
he had like 2 or 3 bad snaps. Yeah. I don't think it was totally. It
was like they were all just slow. They were all like real lob, slow shots. So that kind of threw off timing. But that's, I mean, if you're asking him to play center in a game, you've got like significant issues right now. Like 5, like you lost 5 centers due to injury.
Yeah, you lost. Yeah, everyone's down. Jensen, Marpet, Stinney. You're really scrambling at that point.
That's right, absolutely. And long lost Glazer, shout out and congrats to PR alum at PFF Cincinnati Sycamore. No question about it, long lost Glazer. Great stuff to see Trevor heading over to PFF doing big things. Excited for him. Cannot believe that man is about to live in Cincinnati. And not gonna lie, I think it's a little bit funny, but Trevor in a northern cold city like Cincinnati is hilarious to me because for years on the podcast, he would rip me for living outside of Pittsburgh. And now, how the turns have tabled.
And even, I mean, Pittsburgh is a little better than Cincinnati. I mean,
a lot better.
What are you? No.
A lot better. But I got to let people know about another thing that Trevor could be involved in a little bit too. I'm still talking to him about it, but I think he could be involved in the new Pewter Report. Oh, let me get that comment out of here so y'all can see what I have up on the screen here. The new Pewter Report, Pewter Game Days, Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, Bucs, Texans. We are doing a Pewter Game Day live stream during the game. It's live in-game commentary on our YouTube channel from myself, other Pewter reporters, and special guests. this Saturday when the game starts, actually a few minutes before the game starts, we'll be live. You can watch the whole thing live on pewterreport.com. So yes, subscribe to Pewter Report TV and you can click that bell to get the notifications for when we go live. But we are going to be live during the entirety of the game, offering live analysis and commentary on what you're watching on your TV screen. So you're going to be able to watch and have us on giving you kind of commentary, not dissimilar from the coaches room. If you've seen them before on the ESPN channels when they do the college football championship and things like that, we're going to be offering some things like that. You're going to have expert analysis. You're going to have X's and O's people on here. You're going to have analytics people on here. You're going to get injury updates on players and give them to you live, things like that. And we're also going to still have that Pewter Report post-game podcast 1 hour later. So the whole thing's going to be broadcast on pewterreport.com. It's going to be a ton of fun. You can watch it on there. It's Pewter Game Day, and it starts this Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern when the Bucs play the Texans. We are very, very excited about it. This is something that we are hoping to do a lot this season, maybe every game this season. We'll see. We've got a lot of fun stuff in store for you. So again, Pewter Game Day, make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell to get the notifications for when we go live. Watch it on pewterreport.com so you can help us out in that way, but also spread the word. Tell people. We'll talk about on the podcast every day. In your family, tell them about Pewter Game Day, send them the link to everything, make sure they know and they're set up to be able to watch us and enjoy the game with that kind of commentary and get answers while the broadcast is happening. Going to be a lot of fun. So I'm excited to see some of y'all being excited about that. I think if we can get a good turnout, y'all can keep spreading the word. We're going to be able to do this, something like this a lot for y'all. And we're going to bring in some big time fun guests as well to join in on the action. It's going to be a great time. We've got all kinds of stuff lined up and in store for you. It's going to be a ton of fun. So we're looking forward to that. We've talked a lot about Joe Tryon-Shoyinka today. We've talked about other things from practice. I think I've kind of looked through my notes. You had some thoughts you wanted to say. You had some observations on Bruce Arians' comments after today's practice before we get out of here for this podcast.
Yeah, so he was asked directly if, any positions with depth would compel him to carry more players, such as wide receiver. So you're deep at wide receiver. Would you want to carry 7? Or, and he said, we'd keep 8 receivers and be happy as hell, but, we'd be short at other positions. The thing that really caught my attention was he said there are going to be 10 of them one way or another, whether it's 10 DBs or 10 linebackers. Special teams is going to decide all that. Now take it as you will, but when we're trying to analyze who's going to make the final roster, that's kind of a little telling. I mean, wouldn't you say? I mean, 10 linebackers or 10 TBs. So really they're looking at either keeping, 6 and 4 at cornerback or 5 and 5. So just trying to come up with a way to make this roster make sense with either 10 DBs or 10 linebackers. I mean, you're looking at do they keep an extra outside linebacker and 2 inside linebackers over? I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting comment to look at and say, okay, how is this roster going to be constructed with the players that are currently on it?
Yeah, I am trying to figure out how Travis Johnson makes it and Grant Stewart makes it, and that would assume that KJ Britt, who's played over him the entire way, makes it. And does Joe Jones not make it then? Like, maybe not. I mean, he's certainly not been impressive. Neither's KJ Britt. So
outside linebacker too.
And then do you? I mean, 4 are there. Even if you say, okay, we're going forward outside linebacker, Cam Gills, we're going to waive him and get him on IR or whatever. But then is Antonio Hamilton really not making this roster because he's been really good? Like,
are you going to just go 8 DBs or 7 DBs?
Delaney in there too. Then Bruce Arians loves him. So 6 corners and 3 safeties. And you just. That's possible. That might be likely at this point.
But that's only 9. So, I mean, if he's doing 10 DBs, you'd be keeping probably 4 safeties, 6 corners. And then how do you – I mean, he wants to keep a 9th lineman. It's just trying to figure out the roster constructions with that statement. I was like,
you can't because Arians is full of it. Arians don't think about all those details, man. He just says numbers and things, and then next time he'll be like, yeah, no, we're not keeping 10. Yeah. And he'll act like, yeah, I never said that.
I never said. What are you talking about?
He doesn't care how it sounds in retrospect. He just says what's on his mind at those moments. But no, you're right. I mean, it was an interesting statement for sure. And now it'll be how it shakes out at the bottom of the roster is pretty fascinating to me because I think Antonio Hamilton absolutely deserves to make it. I mean, he has played really well. And so has D. Delaney lately, to be honest. I mean, not as well, but there's been some good things.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be.
His comments too, you know, there's 3 or 4 guys still competing for a spot. So you look at the bottom of the roster and say, okay, who are those guys? And they're still open to competition. And, you know, for me, I thought Javon Hagan had that 4th safety spot wrapped up until Chris Cooper has been getting all the praise now for his special teams work. And we know special teams is the way to make it. So, you know, just trying to figure out who these last 3 to 4 guys are is still a bit of a challenge, you know.
Yeah,
but
Chris Cooper should have had a pick today, by the way. Jumped a route from Blaine Gabbert, went right through his hands, but good play. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, it's first and second team against like third string D now because it's like in preparation for the season. Yeah. So there weren't a lot of observations from practice, but Blaine throwing one through a third string DB's hands was definitely one of the takeaways. Anyway, all right. So you're right. Interesting comment from Arians, no question about it. We've got more of those to get to, I'm sure, as the show progresses throughout the week. Tomorrow we'll be back at our regularly scheduled 4 p.m. Eastern time slot. We'll have thoughts and analysis from a little bit from practice, from Arians' comments after practice. But practices are starting to go into regular season mode, so we're only seeing the first half hour now. And so we'll have a little bit from practice and injuries and things like that, but mostly from whatever they're saying. And then we'll get back to our topics. We're previewing Saturday's game on Wednesday, just like we would a regular season game. Scott and I are doing just like we did last year. If y'all were here, like the in-depth thorough previews, we're talking about that stuff, the biggest battles to watch for rosters. We're getting into all that stuff on Wednesday. Thursday, we'll have guests on as we did last year. We're going to have one on this week as well. I'll let you know a little bit later who that guest is, but yeah, it's going to be fun. We are excited about the shows this week. And then, as I said, Saturday, we'll have the live in-game stream. Tell your friends and families, tell everybody to watch over at pewterreport.com. Then after the game, about 45 minutes to an hour after the game, we'll have the Pewter Report podcast with the PR staff breaking everything down and the final assessment of that game. So until then, thank you so much for listening to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.